You're watching Every Days and Saturdays, USMC veteran. Let's go, baby. And here's your host, Bryan. Hey, what's going on, friends and family? Thank you guys so much for joining Bryan and Marie on Coffee Talk. And we hope you guys are having an amazing day, amazing week out there. How are you doing, Marie?
I'm doing good today. I'm tired, but overall, I'm doing good today.
Rocking a smile. That's always a
Good to
good
see you
thing.
guys.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, um, I hope everybody is having an amazing week, amazing day, whatever it may be out there. This is already episode 20. And I believe with Marie, it's our ninth, 10th, maybe even 11th one together.
11th.
Yeah, I
This will
think
be
it's
11th.
that's right, 11th together.
Yep.
So yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a milestone episode. And we're gonna do something a little bit different today. We're gonna let Marie she wrote a short story. She's going to go through it. We're going to kind of digest it and discuss it. But before we do, let's do something that we always do. Let's brew up a little coffee from Cash Coffee. All right. Hope you guys are enjoying whatever you may be sipping on. Everybody likes their own different things. We know Marie likes her hot chocolate. I got my coffee going. Like to have a little bit of some coffee in the morning. It gets my blood pressure nice and high. So whenever I go to my appointments, like I got a stupid dental appointment today, and every time they tell me they're going to do my blood pressure, I feel like my heart just starts pulsating out of my body immediately. I don't know what it is. It's just that stupid word, like, what? You got to take my blood pressure? I'm at a dental thing. I'm like, it just gets in my head. So even the one lady she's like, I forgot what they call it. There's actually a name for when you have kind of like a phobia of getting your blood pressure done.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yes, and I didn't know it either because first the lady at the dental exam said it, and then we were hanging out at the creek with my family, and my nephew, my sister was telling me a story about my nephew and him going to, I think, the doctors, and he ends up passing out, and he has some kind of a condition. I forgot what the heck it's called. Something.
Iatrophobia is the fear of the fear or anxiety surrounding blood pressure readings.
Yeah.
Iatrophobia.
Okay. Well, there you go. I got the stinking phobia, and I don't even know why. It's the stupidest thing. I can't even tell you. As soon as they whip out the cuff, I'm like, oh gosh, I feel like I feel like my pulse is coming out of my skin. I'm like, gosh, damn it. Man, yeah, and you'd think by now, being from the Marine Corps and all that, being poked 1,000 times over and all that stuff, that I'd be no problem. But no, I've had to stay actually at a doctor's appointment, and then ended up doing like an EKG on me and all that stuff to see if I had heart problems.
Because your blood pressure was so high?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's fun.
Or like they make me stay a little bit longer and lay in the chair and kind of relax and stuff. And I'm just like, ah. Then they're like, oh, yeah, you're fine.
I've never had the high blood pressure. I've always had the low blood pressure, and especially like with the POTS thing that I have, where my blood pressure tanks and then my heart starts racing because my blood pressure is tanking. So that's interesting. So yeah, I've never had
Yeah,
the
they're like,
high.
you don't got a pulse, ma'am. You're alive.
Well, my pulse starts jumping up. Like my pulse will go up like 30, 40, 50, 60 beats per minute because my blood pressure drops and then my heart. Yeah, it's interesting. So, yeah.
Yeah, good times. Good times. But all right, well, let's go ahead and get on with the good old show. And Marie, it's your time to shine and you know, let us in the
Okay.
story
Okay.
and share it.
Yeah. So I wanted to do just something a little bit different today. So the last, not the last episode, but the episode before, when I kind of shared my story of hitting my bottom in my alcoholism and getting sober, you know, this is a story that I wrote about my relationship with my alcoholism. And so I figured I'd kind of, read this story because along with the poetry, I also like doing short stories. And I haven't done as many very often lately, but this is one that I am like super, super proud of. And I figured I can read this, we can kind of discuss it, and then afterwards, to sum us up, then I can read a new poem I wrote last night too. So, just kind of have fun with it. But so this story is kind of like it is an anonymous story about an abusive relationship. And so for me, it represents my alcoholism, but you may see something completely different in this. And somebody else will see something completely different. But it's in the guise of an abusive relationship with somebody that you know. And that somebody that you know is the neighbor. And then being able to escape the neighbor and finding something better, which is the stranger. Because usually we are more comfortable with the neighbor and scared of a stranger. But this is kind of saying that sometimes that's not healthy. So it's called The Neighbor and the Stranger. The sky was a dark shade of grayish blue. It was sprinkled with cotton, held by invisible strings from the atmosphere. The energy from the city below clouded the horizon, watching over the citizens. Most were unaware of all the incredible movements happening around them. The ants below marched in victory with their treasure back to their awaiting queen. The birds scurried above, getting comfortable, awaiting the first sign of morn when they would greet the sun and sing praises to their creator. On this quiet, strange night full of nature's music, one woman, alone in the old town park, sat on a swing, gazing at the tree above her. Although she was shivering, she was engulfed in watching the birds huddle in their nest, hiding their heads beneath their wings, the moon shining through the branches. After a few moments, the woman started slowly shifting her weight back and forth, swinging higher and higher. She laughed at every jolt the old swing set gave as the leverage of her body weight lifted the poles dangerously from their foundations and then thudded down on the frozen ground with every backswing. When she was satisfied with the tremendous lift she had created, she released the chains of the swing and reached for the stars as she flew through the sky, landing feet first in a pile of knee-deep snow. Losing her balance and falling forward, she braced herself with gloved hands, sliding through the snow pile and catching her fall, her face inches away from an icy blast. Her laughter filled the air with steam trailing from her lips. However, it stopped abruptly as she pushed herself upright when she realized she was hearing a faint sound of applause behind her. She turned quickly and stood frozen, staring into a face unrecognizable. Yet there was something oddly familiar about it. It was warm, soft, and welcoming, like it should belong to a family member. A face, it seemed, that had been lost in her memory from a time long ago, or a time yet to come. She could not put her finger on why she was not scared to see a stranger watching her in the moonlight. The stranger slowly stepped closer to the woman, and then she noticed the eyes, those unmistakable golden eyes. Her eyes, the eyes of her people, the people of her dreams, or were they distant memories? She wasn't quite so sure anymore. Those eyes had filled her mind many times a night for many years. She could have sworn once or twice while glancing past a mirror, she had seen those eyes staring back at her, beyond the sapphire gleam everyone else knew and loved. Every time she thought she saw it, before she had a chance for a second look, she was distracted by the neighbor who she cared for deeply. He was more important and demanding than a possible glint she had seen in a mirror, and she would always forget to look back. The stranger seemed to get blurry around the edges as her mind started trailing off into questions, and she stood in apprehension of the strange connection she was feeling. The moonlight, peering through a hole in the now dark clouds that covered the sky, gleamed and bounced steadily off each falling flake that came into view. The stranger had a shimmering silhouette which was magnified by the moonlight as well. No noise was heard, but when her mind focused back on the stranger, she knew the stranger was trying to communicate with her. No words were formed, so try as she may, the woman could not understand what was being shared. She just stood in disbelief, wondering if this was yet another beautiful dream world her mind had created. Suddenly, a noise interrupted the interaction, and she felt a hand on her shoulder. The stranger started looking more like a foggy apparition than a solid being, as her thoughts of awe were changed to irritation. When the woman broke eye contact and focused on the hand, in an instant she looked back up, and the stranger had vanished into thin air. She turned around and almost knocked down the neighbor in frustration. She knew it was him. Couldn't she just have 5 minutes to herself without him coming to get her for something? She knew he was concerned for her and wanted her close to him. However, sometimes she just felt that she needed to get outside, needed to breathe fresh air and have some alone time. Brokenhearted that the meeting, was it a reunion, had been interrupted, she had to fake a smile as the neighbor took her hand and walked her back across the street into his home. She realized in that moment that this connection was something she had been waiting for and expecting for a very long time, and it was lost in an instant. The agony started throbbing in her throat and chest, and she pushed back the tears that started swelling up in her eyes. Would she ever know the truth? Would she ever see the stranger again? Could she have found an answer to her constant loneliness, pain from the past, disconnection from everyone? The neighbor interrupted her thoughts by leading her through his front door, and falling into her normal routine, she forgot about the stranger, getting lost in the momentary comfort and warmth the neighbor provided her. The next morning, the woman went through the motions of her day. She knew what was expected of her, and by now she didn't stall as much getting her daily chores started. She didn't even shudder as violently anymore when she heard the bed squeak and the neighbor started getting ready for the day. She worried it may be a bad day when she heard him trip on the bathroom rug. Then she heard him humming as he was brushing his teeth. She loved his music and knew that when she heard it, the day would go by peacefully. She cooked breakfast and made coffee, cleared the counter of all the dirty dishes, and set up the table just how the neighbor liked it, humming to the neighbor's tune as she worked away. She even put a strawberry on top of his pancakes, for she knew they were his favorite. She went back to the bedroom and laid his clothes out on the bed while he was showering, and then went back to the kitchen to pour the coffee in his mug so it would be nice and fresh when he came in. She knew if she made things pleasant and easy for him, that he would continue taking care of her. As she sipped her own cup of coffee, she was lost in the dream of the night before. It had been so real this time. She could almost remember the taste of that snowflake that had landed on her dream, or landed on her tongue while she was flying through the air. When she walked in front of the sink, she caught a reflection in the kitchen window just for a split second. Could it be? Was that a flicker there? The same one in the stranger's eyes? As she was turning her head back to get another look, her mind whirling, trying to process it all, she heard the screams echoing through the halls, coming from the other side of the house. She went running back into the neighbor's bedroom, and she quickly noticed her mistake. She swiftly headed to the dresser to find a pair of matching socks. How could she have forgotten again? As she was digging through the drawer, she barely moved her head in time to avoid the shoe being chucked toward her from behind, shattering the lamp on top of the dresser. How had she gotten into this situation? Why did she not just leave? Why couldn't she get away from the neighbor? These questions, just like a million times before, plagued her mind as she meekly, timidly brought the socks to the neighbor with head down in shame and guilt. With a deep breath, the neighbor put his arms around her, apologized for overreacting, kissed her on the forehead, and begged for her forgiveness. He recited once more those sweet words of comfort, encouragement, and love that always kept her coming back to him. He would try better next time. He loved her and never wanted to do anything to harm her. She told herself again that he truly did love her and he would always be there for her. I mean, sometimes he overreacted, sometimes he left, but he always came back to her and gave her his full heart. She just needed to remember to treat him as good as he treated her. He kept her fed, he gave her comfort, and he gave her warmth. She was never alone, never excluded, and never had to work. He took care of her, and she just needed to be more attentive to his needs. The next day, as the sun played peekaboo behind the gray clouds, high up in the noon sky, she decided to go for another walk. She figured daytime would be better because the neighbor was at work. He wouldn't be worried about her or make her come inside. The snow started floating down through the air, and a small flake caressed her cheek. In a moment, forgetting the entire world around her again, all her fears, anxieties, and frustrations, she started dancing up and down the sidewalk. Somehow, the woman ended up back in the park across the street. She flung herself down into the new layers of snow covering the frozen ground as if she was a child again. She proceeded in creating snow angel after snow angel, jumping up each time and admiring her work. She skipped around, crunched through, and even ate some of the snow. Without realizing how much time had passed, she sat down on a hill by the forest. She blinked the wet flakes out of her lashes, breathing wispy clouds out of her mouth after each deep breath. She turned as she heard a noise in the forest and smiled as she saw a family of deer prancing from behind one tree to another. The fawn that was trailing behind his parents paused to stare at her with his unblinking eyes. She suddenly was aware that she was not alone in watching the spectacular scene nature was showing her. As she turned her body around, she jumped to her feet in surprise. The stranger was back. She realized in an instant that this was the same place, the same park she had been in the other night when she had first seen the stranger. Had the stranger been here the whole time? As they interlocked eyes yet again, she knew in her heart that this was not a dream, and the last meeting was not imagined. This was the most real interaction that she could ever remember having, and no words had even been uttered between them. The immediate connection was unmistakable. The stranger, like last time, was shimmering around the edges, and this time it seemed as if there was a glowing shield extending from the stranger's outline, gently caressing the woman with its protection. Between that and the stranger's glowing eyes, she felt a satisfying warmness fill her entire being from the inside out, and strange chills started flowing across every inch of her skin. It was as if she was a fish being put back into the water, finally being able to breathe the life-saving oxygen interlaced in the liquid. She felt with absolutely no doubt in her heart or mind that she knew the stranger. She belonged with the stranger. She still could not understand what the stranger was trying to convey to her, but she knew she was safe and that somehow, some way, she must find a way to communicate with the stranger. She just had to remember. As she caught her breath and mustered up the courage to step forward and started choking out the beginning of a greeting, she heard the neighbor's voice bellowing from across the street. She paused and thought for a brief moment that the neighbor could wait. She begged in her mind, hoping that he would wait. She knew that this was where she needed to be. The stranger had answers. All would be well if she would just stay here. She heard the neighbor's voice getting louder as he started crossing the street to find her. And when she turned her head to confront him, She knew she was powerless over the influence the neighbor had over her. She grudgingly took his outreached hand and headed back towards the house. He gently reminded her what time it was and that dinner was late. He was hungry. By the time they reached the neighbor's house, the warmth from the park turned into jagged needles of pain shooting throughout her body. She paused at the neighbor's front door and slowly turned around, knowing yet yearning for a different outcome. The stranger was out of sight. The neighbor gently prodded her inside and kissed her on the forehead as she passed him, entering the threshold. When they got inside, the neighbor slammed the door, backed the woman into the kitchen against the wall, and tears filled her eyes. As the neighbor belittled her for acting so childish and wasting her day at the park, he explained that the warm house was right here. A fire needed to be made and dinner needed to be cooked. The neighbor reminded her of his plans. He wanted to get home from work, eat dinner, and enjoy the night with the woman without interruption. By the time the neighbor had finished talking, the woman had her arms around him, apologizing for making him wait. She knew his plans, so why couldn't she just be content with supporting him and keeping the obstacles out of the way so they could just have fun? She knew that he was right to be upset with her, and she would dedicate herself more to him. She told herself that she appreciated that he could be so open about his feelings to her. This is why she stayed with him. A few days went by and the woman was drinking coffee on the couch, the smell of something savory on the stove, awaiting the neighbor to get home. A cold chill ran through her body. A drastic, mind-altering awareness slowly crept into her heart and mind. The warmth the neighbor extended to her only lasted when he was physically in her presence. Throughout the day, it slowly faded. His warmth was only on the surface, and it was nowhere near as intense and inviting as the stranger's had been. She thought about this for a while, remembering how the stranger had evoked a warmness that started in her heart, radiating outwards. As she was complicating the ramifications of these realizations, she was thrown back into her present reality. She heard the neighbor pull into the drive. Scrambling, she made sure everything was perfect, and the sigh of relief was released from her chest as she noticed the flowers in the neighbor's hand. He embraced her in his arms and told the woman that he was sorry that he sometimes felt that she sometimes felt he had offended her, and that he was sorry that she felt like he was too tough on her sometimes. He told her that he needed her in his life. He went on to tell her that she just could not ever leave him because that would destroy him. He stated that he just knew that she was starting to pull away from him, and he told her he would do everything in his power to make her feel like she belonged to him. The woman's thoughts of that afternoon were drowned in an instant as she felt the neighbor's warmth surround her once more, and the fears of being alone outweighed the possibility of something better waiting for her. They had a lovely dinner, and after the woman cleaned up the kitchen, she sat on the couch across from the neighbor. She rubbed his feet and he sang her a lullaby. For the first time in a long time, that lullaby did not give her peace. She noticed it seemed empty. However, she snuggled up next to him, trying to clear her mind. She got lost in his music once more, though she could not shake the uncontrollable feeling that something wasn't right. The neighbor continued to hum, wrapping his arms around the woman, and closed his eyes. She felt that the embrace was more controlling than a hug. This feeling made her sad and uncomfortable. It made her frustrated and angry. She noticed that there was no warmth in that song or in his arms anymore. All she heard was shallow noise, and she felt like she was in a restraint. Was he just trying to distract her mind? Had he been brainwashing her? She looked back in her memory to try to find when she actually enjoyed the neighbor and didn't feel obligated to stay with him. The woman tried as best she could to get these thoughts out of her head as her mind was racing faster than she could keep up. Was she truly happy here? Did she love the neighbor? Did he love her? Did she know what love was? Could she leave if she wanted to? Where were they heading? Was there light at the end of this tunnel? Why did none of this feel comfortable or genuine anymore? Was the price she was paying to be with this neighbor worth what she was receiving? Or worse, what she had lost? As she heard the neighbor's noise start changing from the distracting racket to a peaceful, light snoring, the thoughts continued swirling in her head, making her nauseous. When was the last time she had smiled spontaneously with a neighbor, instead of smiling when she felt like it was appropriate for the situation? When was the last time she had company over to join in festive activities? When was the last time she actually took a few minutes to pamper herself, read a book, tell a joke, sing a song? When was the last time she left to go on an errand without checking her watch constantly, knowing she had to be home at a certain time? Those few episodes at the park of genuine laughter were the only remnant she had left of the one spontaneous, happy-go-lucky girl she used to be. This was not love. She didn't know what this was, but she finally came to the conclusion that she didn't want whatever this was anymore. It was damaging her. She was living in fear. She had ruined all of her other relationships and lost contact with everyone, even her old self and her old views. The neighbor had been more important to her than anyone else or anything in the world. And when anything threatened her connection with him, she walked away and pushed them out of her mind. How had she gotten so lost? Love was never meant to be isolating or destructive. It was meant to be uplifting. She knew what she must do. The stranger. That was the answer. She had to get to the park. Somehow she knew there was a better way to live. Anything had to be better than the existing she had been doing for so long. Quietly, the woman slipped out of the neighbor's arms and off the couch. Unsure of how she would be able to accomplish the task of leaving the neighbor behind, she told herself that she had to get out. She tiptoed to the kitchen, grabbed her coat, and unlocked the front door. The click of the bolt made the neighbor stir in the living room. Frozen, she hesitated. Was this really the right thing to do? The neighbor had done so much for her. He truly was amazing when they first met, sweeping her off her feet, giving her praise and affection from the very beginning. He showed her off like a prize at parties, and she knew she was special when she was with him. Occasionally, he still took her out with his friends and doted on her hand and foot. There were so many other things he had done for her. He had helped her distance herself from people who put her down for so many years. Would she have the courage to stand up for herself? He had shown her that she didn't have to be lonely or feel left out anymore. Would she know how to socialize without him? He even brought her home presents and showered her with love as long as she kept things in order for him and supported him. She had a warm house, food in the fridge, and plenty of time to herself. How would she take care of herself? He didn't stifle her all the time. He gave her space when she needed it, as long as his needs were taken care of first. All these thoughts went through her head, holding on to the handle. She noticed the cracks in the door from all the times the neighbor had slammed it shut in frustration of something she had done wrong. She looked over and saw the hole in the wall next to the kitchen where he had thrown a glass at her, barely missing her because she gave him the wrong flavor soda. She looked up and saw the spaghetti sauce stains on the ceiling of the kitchen, leftovers from the night she forgot to add onions to the mix. Her thoughts turned to motivation. She could finally see the truth of their whole relationship. This was not the love she was raised to believe in. This was not the love she wanted anymore. This was not love. When the sound of the neighbor snoring startled her out of her thoughts, she cracked open the door ever so gently and finally slid a foot out into the cold. She felt the icy air overwhelm her bare foot. She closed her eyes and asked for the strength to continue. She knew this was her only chance to leave, and she had no time to spare. She took a deep breath, bracing herself for what was coming, and lifted her weight forward, shifted her weight forward. Her toes crunched the freshly falling snow. She took one step, then another. She didn't even take the chance of closing the door. However, somehow she knew she would be all right, and the door would be closed for her. As her hand slipped off the handle, she knew she could finally breathe easy. She took a few more steps and she heard the door latch into place. An overwhelming warmness embraced her, and she knew that the stranger was right behind her, supporting her as she crossed the street. She didn't even look back. She didn't have to anymore. As she emerged into the park, the stranger was magically in front of her, shimmering brighter than ever. Unsure of what her next step would be, she stared into the stranger's glowing eyes yet again, and this time no noise in the world, no person, nothing could distract her. She knew she was where she needed to be and that she would soon have all the answers. Those eyes looked straight into her soul and reflected it back into her consciousness. She knew in that moment that she was free. She was finally where she belonged. The stranger said nothing and demanded nothing, yet somehow she knew if she took the stranger's outstretched hands, a new world awaited her, one that was beyond her greatest, wildest imagination. Without blinking, the woman reached out, anticipating the feeling of interlocked fingers, and to her surprise, she was lifted into the air by powerful arms that supported her full weight. The stranger cloaked the woman's whole body in the most wonderful embrace of her limited memory, which engulfed her entire being. With her eyes still locked on the stranger's, the connection was intensified, and in a split second, she felt a streaming of sensations as she was transported into another plane of existence. She didn't know where, how, or why she came to be in that moment, but that didn't matter anymore. She didn't need to ask questions. She knew the answers would be inserted into her fragile heart and mind when the time was right. She shakingly took her footing as the stranger lowered her into a cloud-like grass on the surface below. The energy that filled her soul was so familiar. It was completely and utterly the deepest sense of intensity that she had ever experienced. Words cannot explain what she was feeling. Her human senses couldn't even comprehend what was going on inside, around, and through her being. This was the place she had been longing for her entire existence, though she never realized it until that moment. The only word her mind and soul could muster that her feeble brain and language could understand was home. She slowly looked around and stumbled with her awkward feet, which felt so weak and uneasy on this new, unique atmosphere. She noticed there was no audible sounds in this entire place, and she wasn't scared or nervous at all. Fear, anxiety, pain, none of these words mattered anymore. For the first time in her life, she felt understood, and she herself understood. All she knew, all she needed to know, all she felt around her was unconditional love, connection, and comfort. She felt an overwhelmingly satisfying peace while looking around as she gazed upon more glowing eyes than she could ever imagine existed. And she knew one simple truth: she was finally home. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. What a great story that was. And um right off rip, just a real high level, you can see the for her, the clarity becomes more clear the more that she began to heal, right? And she also gained strength. Your story now, it could be related to so many people. It doesn't even have to be due to alcoholism. That, I know that's what inspired you, but the story itself is probably extremely relatable to a lot of people out there right now today. How many people are in unhealthy relationships due to the fact that they themselves have an unhealthy mental state of mind, right? So, and it's very easy to throw yourself into a bad relationship, be okay with certain things because you don't feel deserving enough to have something, right? And you don't value yourself well enough. So when you get something and that neighbor was giving you enough to make you feel wanted, right? But no matter how, but the other part is even though that the neighbor was doing good things for you, you were still not being able to be yourself, right? And you weren't able to let the person be, grow out to who you want to be. And once you started to heal, the neighbor didn't want that part, right? Because the neighbor is realizing, oh shoot, she's going to realize a lot of things too, right? And now I can't control her. I can't, I'm losing control because now she's gaining strength, right? And how many people in the world are out there going through that same struggle, So it's very relatable.
Yeah, and that specifically was something that was so powerful to me because that was my addictions. That was my alcoholism, my food addiction, my the promiscuity, all of that kind of stuff, right? It was like every time I would get to a point where I was feeling okay just being me, something would happen and these addictions would like come after me. It wasn't like, oh, I was continuing going back to the addictions every time. Like I felt it coming after me. Like the spiritual stuff, right? That the representation of the stranger is the spirituality and God for me, right? God and healing and spirituality. And the spirituality stayed where it was. I came to it, right? But then the addictions would come after me and pull me back, and then I would be stuck in there and I would see, oh, this would make me feel good for a little while, but then I'm like, well, I don't like this anymore, this isn't real. And as I continued moving forward, realizing that this was not real genuine love or connection, I would go back and be with a stranger and I would feel that love and connection, and then the addictions would come and then I would go right back to it. And so and then every time I turned away from the spirituality, it's the spirituality was still there, but I got distracted and I kept going away. And so it's just been interesting to, like to think about it that way. And then when I finally had that decision, like, okay, like I really am done. And that's when it wasn't just me walking away, it was me walking away and asking for help from the stranger, right?
And not
From
only
that
that, but
spirituality.
you were at a level of vulnerability, right? And you at this level in time, you were, you weren't, spiritually strong. You were still very, you know, you were very unsure of things and uncertainty. Evil preys on fear, sadness, loneliness, depression. It really it plays on all the different weaknesses that we have, and it really, so when you are in a very bad state of mind and you already have all these self doubts and everything else, evil preys on that, and that's why it kept coming after you, because you still had that in you. You were fighting it at that moment. You that's when the battle really started, right? Is when you had realization of like you're being torn down and you feel like the weaknesses is grabbing onto you. Here you are trying to fight it off, right? And you're trying to gain your strengthness. And then as you're doing it, evilness is still coming like, oh hell no, she's trying to get better. We can't let her. Come on. Let's
Yep.
throw all the things that we can at her. And that's why a lot of people trip up on their journeys, right? They're trying so hard. They're trying so hard, but the evil is just literally just right behind them, trying to grab onto them, and you literally just got to keep on moving, right? Going forward and swiping those freaking hands off of you and just fighting through it and not allowing it. But sometimes I feel like it pulls a lot of people back in, and that's why I love how your story it literally takes us through the beginning and to the rise of it all, and how you basically defeated off evilness, right? And it took some time, and you were doubting yourself during a lot of some of these times too, because that's the other thing. Once you get a little bit of that freedom back, it feels weird to you. It's almost you don't even know how to act now. You don't even know how to act with that now, right? And you're still kind of like, I got this sword now. Oh shit, what do I do with it?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, I can fight things off now. You know what I mean? Like now I have a sword with me and I have a shield. And you just start gaining your stuff to fight off these demons that are literally on your back.
Well, the hard thing about that, right, is a lot of the things that you are trying to fight off are the things that have been your best friends for
Sure.
so long. And so
Well, it's giving
that was the
you.
hard thing
That's the
because
problem. It's false assurance, right?
yes,
And that's what evil does. It makes you feel.
yes.
It wants to give you a dose of feeling because it wants you to stay in that place. It wants you to stay in that darkness. Hold on. Wait. They're feeling a little uncomfortable in the darkness. Let's give them a little something to feel more
Yes,
comfortable,
that's
right? And
exactly what it is, and that's what my alcohol did to me. It was like, okay, well, it was a pick me up. It was my friend. It was my comforter. It helped me out, you know. And so there was like, and that's why in the story, it's like, well, look at all of these good things that it did for me. But then it's like, but look at all of this other stuff. Is it worth it? Is it worth what I am sacrificing for this?
right. And
Yeah.
that's the thing about it is you're almost selling your soul to the evilness when you're willing to sacrifice, right? Your own self being and who you truly are, where your absolute happiness comes from. You know, if you're willing, if you're going to give that up, then that's when you live with that pain and sorrow. I feel like you. That's why a lot of people feel they can't find their happiness, right? It's because they're still locked into so many things. They may have all the cars in the world to be rich, this and that and the other, but sometimes that's not exactly what it truly is, because there's something up in this area that is not controlled by money or any other those kind of things that are physically here.
Well, and that's why I did the representation of when she was escaping the neighbor, that I went into a childlike stance. You know, it was in the park. It was she's like swinging, and like that picture of she's swinging and having fun
Well,
and
and that's
jumping
it too. I feel
and
like
enjoying herself. The snow angels and stuff like that. It's like that's when she felt giddy and bubbly, and that inner child came out. Go ahead.
that's where I felt like too is a lot of the story was your inner child, right? Was trying to free you, right? And trying to the whole time your inner child is trying to release that in, because that little child knows your happiness and seen that happiness, right? And
Yep.
and then she doesn't recognize this person. Who is that? And that's what the cool thing is too, is how you kind of intertwine that part where it's your inner child is the one that's trying to break you loose a little bit too, and trying to say, you're not being you. This is not you, right? And so that little girl in you is just constantly like, hey, you laugh way more than this. You're funny. You're not being funny. And I love that part too, and that's why I'm saying like if you really pay attention to it, and you got to really listen to a lot of the intertwining of it and how it goes, but you can kind of get how you see how a lot of your inner child is playing a lot into this story as well.
Yep. Well, and
And
then that's the thing, is like our inner child is based on joy and based on love, and that's what spirituality is, right? It's joy and love, and that's the whole idea, is like when we can go back into like they talk in church, right, about becoming Christ-like and becoming as a little child, right? And it's for a reason, because little children are just full of joy and in the present and full of love. Like before everything's been interrupted, the world, and trauma and everything else comes in.
sure.
Children are joy and love, and so that is the whole point, is getting back to that point. And once we get back to that point, that is when we're able to be fully present, and that is when God can speak to us. That is when spirituality and connection can convert us and can comfort us. And that ability to get out of the world and into that spirituality and love. That is when, once I finally made that decision to do that more regularly, more permanently, God brought me to this new plane of existence of love and joy. I still struggle. I'm still working through things, and I still find myself coming back and forth. But for the most part, I'm up in this new plane of existence, and I see more healing, because when I was with the neighbor and the stranger, like when I was with the neighbor, right, when I was in my alcoholism, when I was in my addictions, all I saw were dark eyes. That's all I saw. And now going through this journey, now I can see more of the glowing eyes. I can see more of the light. I can see more of the love and the connection.
Clarity.
But like going into the eyes, right? I just wanted to focus on that before I forget. So before I got sober, I could not look myself in the mirror because I was scared what I didn't see there, because I didn't see light. I could not look myself in the eyes. And when I got sober, it was like a few months after I got sober that I was in the bathroom of all places, and I was looking in the mirror, and all of a sudden I just saw myself, and I was like, there you are. And I finally could see my spirit. I could finally see love in those eyes. And so what happened was, about a year later, I had my cat. I had a cat. And sadly, we had to put her down last year, but her name was Stella. And there was one day I was looking for her, and I saw her. I found out she was underneath my bed, and I did a flashlight and looked under the bed. And that was when her eyes were glowing, because cat's eyes glow when you put lights in it. And that is what inspired this whole story. Was that idea of seeing the glow, a physical glow that way, but then the emotional glow that I saw in mine, the spiritual glow that I saw in mine, and the physical that I saw in hers. And so that's what inspired this whole idea of the eyes, which inspired the whole story. You know, it's like, okay, now I can see the glow in other people. Even if it's not a physical glow like it is with a cat, I can see that glow in other people's eyes. And so I'm grateful that I have this new ability to be able to see that and to feel that. And I can also see when there's darkness in people's eyes as well. I'm not fooled by it anymore.
Yeah, and I think that once you begin to start healing, clarity starts coming around, and you start to realize things that maybe you weren't realizing before. It's crazy. It is actually a little crazy to you when all of a sudden you get to be a little bit of a clear mind, and then something comes across that's come across before, and you're seeing it from a different angle now, in a different perspective, because now your train of thought is different now, right? And that goes with a lot of different things in life in general. Like for me, my journey of trying to lose weight and stuff like that, it's had to become a mindset. It's had to become a lifestyle. It can't just be kind of like a hobby. I don't feel like doing it today. And when the wife and I went off to Vegas, I woke up and went to the gym. And that's when I knew, okay, I'm hitting that next level now. I am now going to the gym while I am on vacation. That is something I've never done before. When I'm on vacation, it's like, cool, I'm on vacation. But no, I got up, and I was shocked how many damn people were down in the dang gym at, like 6:30 or 7 in the morning. I was like, wow, I thought I was going to be the only one, but no, it was pretty packed. So there's a lot of people out there with that same mindset. But anyhow, it just becomes a way that you have to condition your mind. And then sometimes, just like anything else, it's like you got to learn how to ride a bike. You got to learn, you got to start off with little training wheels, and then take your training wheels off. That's just the same way when it goes to getting your mental health journey on track. You got to almost start to learn things all over again. Because now you're working with a different mindset, and it's a different ball game, and it's so weird because it's happened to me in relationships, just like kind of like you said during the neighbor story. I've kind of been there before, right? And when I started down my mental health journey, I started realizing things that I was like, whoa, I've been allowing this, and or maybe my reaction to this has been getting me in a bad place, but I'm actually in a really good place. I just need to be better on the reaction portion of it, and when you start realizing kind of things, it does kind of put you on a different level, I feel like, and it gives you a different stance when you learn how to take a step back versus react immediately to a situation. And your story is like I said, it's very relating to I think a lot of folks out there because I think for the most part, almost I'm not even gonna say for the most part. I'm gonna say high chance are is damn near 99.9% of the people out there have some kind of mental health issue, whether it be something very minor that they experienced that they just never want to deal with, to the absolute extremes. But I'm pretty sure anybody that's lived life has some kind of a really bad story, something that's happened to them, and they think they're okay, right? They think they're good, but sometimes you're not, and you don't realize that until something else happens or other things start to happen, and then next thing you know, you got this big ass ball formed up, and it starts rolling behind you, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, what's this? Oh sheesh, there's all these things happening that you just been
Well,
running away from constantly, and you're still trying to run away."
Well, and that's kind of why I did this story the way that I did it too, right? Is before she didn't even know that something was wrong. This was just her
Right.
normal.
This is just
This was
normal
just her
life, day to
every day.
day.
This is
Yep.
just the way it is.
Right.
It's like some things weren't good, but oh well, this is just how it is,
So
and they
that's
saw
that
the
because your
positives
mental
of
health
it.
wasn't right. And so you
Yes.
were accepting, and the life that you created was good enough.
Yes.
It's keeping you alive,
Yep.
right? And
But it took it
it's throwing you little treats throughout the way. But
yes,
it's
and
not any, it's false gold, really, right? It's throwing you a little bit of some fool's gold, making you feel like you're in a good place.
yes. And it took me being open. It took me being able to pull myself out of the situation for a little bit and somebody else to help me see what was going on. Somebody else had to show me, the stranger had to show me that there was something different. Because
So
that's the thing is in my life, every time that I've been in difficult situations, and this is kind of where this goes into as well, is throughout all of this time when I growing up with my disconnected feelings and my addictions, in my later years and all of this stuff, I had moments where I could see what was going on because I felt something real from somebody else. But every time I would go right back to the life I was living. But it took somebody else showing me that, hey, this is what love can be like. This is what connection is really like. It took somebody showing. So God was showing himself through other people multiple times throughout my journey. And I would go to it and I'd be like, oh, cool. And then I would go back. And then I would go to it and then I would go back. But that's the thing is this is where community is so important. It takes other people to help us show us that something better is out there. And like my goal at some point is I want to write a sequel to this story. And the sequel is where now that the woman has gone to this new place of existence, she now becomes the stranger in somebody else's story.
hmm,
Because that is the thing is like this is something where we have to help each other out. And so
sure.
over the years I've met other strangers,
Right.
but then I just kept turning away. So I want to show that now that I am in this new plane of existence, I have become somebody else's stranger, and I am part of helping other people see that there is a different way.
So who is it that you think started shining some light on this for you at some
There's
point in time? Do you feel, was it multiple people? Was it you yourself? Or, what was kind of like the first inclination of like, you had a realization more or less of like, hold up, man, I think I got something that's really wrong with me and I do need to get this fixed. When did that part kind of hit you? Do you remember that in
so
particular
so
time?
there's multiple different layers. I've had, multiple different things because there's been individual people, but there's also been opportunities in my life. Like when I was younger and I didn't really feel very connected, right? In my church, I went to the temple to be with my family when I was like 9. And so that was something that I was like, oh, well, this is a moment that I'm in with strangers and with the stranger, right? I felt spirituality because I'm in the temple and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. This is something that means something to me. But then, go back out and I don't really feel that as much and then continue on. And then I've had individual, like when I was a teenager and I didn't want to go to church or anything, but I started going to seminary. And in seminary, I had a seminary teacher that was like super accepting of where I was, but showing me, hey, here's a little bit of life on another side. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Let me dip my toes. Oh, nope, I'm going to run away. And then when I was 18, I went to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, their general conference. They have a conference twice a year. And I went into the conference and the prophet came in and I felt his presence. And I was like, oh man, there is something spiritual here. But then as soon as I left that conference, it was like nothing. And then when I was in Iraq, I went when I was in basic training, I had a conversation with a Buddhist guy that started showing me about, being present and feeling love. And I was like, oh, well, that's cool. So anyways, there was multiple different layers over the years. And even in my, in Iraq, right, I saw baptism out there, and that kind of did it, and then over the years, there was just many different layers of spirituality inside of my church and outside of my church. There was just kind people that would show me this love, and I'd be like, oh, well, that's really cool, I like that. Nope, I'm going to come back this way. There were people showing me that, hey, you can enjoy life without addictions, and I was like, nope, I'm going to keep coming back. And there was literally multiple different times. And then I had, just so many different layers of people and situations that happened in my life that showed me that there was another way to live, but I just didn't pay attention to it. And so it took my friend, like I said before, it took my friend Petrie to be like, hey, you know that you're bordering on alcoholism. And I'm like, no, I am an alcoholic. And I was like, oh, this is weird. And then she started like showing me, like kind of teaching me how people can actually live without alcohol. And there was just many different layers, you know what I mean? And I always kind of stayed connected to my church. And it was just really weird. It's like I knew that this was here and I would go back to it, but then I would leave and go back and leave and go back and leave. Just so many different options, So anyways, I don't know if that answers your question, but there was just so many different layers. And then
so it sounds like a lot of people actually really contributed to building your foundation, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
For you to have something stable to stand on,
yes.
It sounds like a lot. Like you just kind of said that you had multiple people contributing to that foundation. So, just for the listeners out there, I want you to put that in, to perspective. Like it doesn't always have to be you building your foundation and for your mental health and your stability. There could be multiple people that are just contributing and just by doing little things and bringing some awareness. Maybe they say something to you and put you into your place, so to speak, and because you've been acting out of pocket, and then everybody doesn't want to tell you because they don't want to go into confrontation. Because a lot of us have friends, right, that will kind of enable us and allow us to keep going down the badass path to keep doing dumbass things. Because for one, they don't really want to have confrontation with you, right? You might be a confrontational person. Some people are scared to approach you and talk to you because they hate the way you react. I've gotten that before, still to this day, probably. But one thing or the other. But what I'm saying is that, that could be the slippery slope. And when you kind of put it all on yourself, it takes a tribe to do a lot of things. And sometimes when you're down on your feet or you're down in a ditch, you need rope. You need someone to a hand to pull you up. You need someone to shine some flashlights down on you. And so surround yourself with people who are going to throw the rope down to you, and still hold it and bring you back up, not just throw the whole entire piece of rope down to you and say, figure it out. But someone who's going to be there or throw their hand down there or turn on the lights for you and tell you to come towards the light. Those are the people you want to surround yourself with, not the ones that are telling you to go down the ditch, or hey, go over to that little hole and see what's down there. Those kind of people you got to watch out for. They want to watch you fall. They want to watch you go down into that pit. It's funny to them, right? But it's not always going to be funny to you at the end of the day in your life, right? And one day when you want to settle down and have a family, there's a lot of things you'll have to put in perspective, so don't allow yourself to keep getting thrown into these pits because someone told you to go down there to go fetch something. A lot of us, we tend to do that for others. We literally put our lives on the back burner for some of the other person. You're cheating yourself in life when you do that. You're cheating others in life too, because you're not truly, genuinely giving someone your cold heart and who you are, right? Like you are just trying to be someone you're not. And that's, like I said, that stuff gets to be extremely exhausting to continuously live to be someone you're not, because you can keep putting on all the makeups and you could keep putting on all this, the clothes, but that stuff comes off and it starts to wear off, sweat. And at some point in time, the real you is going to be seen. Do you want to be with someone who's going to not care for you, not like you because you look different now without all this stuff that they liked on you? It's really hard world to travel in, because we do want to be a good person to our significant others. And a lot of people think that that's like giving up their entire life and just giving into that other person's every single needs and putting your needs on the back burner for that other person. You got to be careful with all that, because if you can't keep filling up a bucket full enough for that person and taking that bucket and it's not full enough for them, they're going to end up going to someone else to fill their buckets. So you got to be careful when you start approaching these kind of people who just need their buckets for you to keep filling their buckets up. No, we all got to carry our own buckets and fill up our own buckets and stuff like that. If you keep putting your bucket into someone else's bucket, you're not going to have anything and for yourself. And eventually, when you want to try to find yourself, you're going to be in that path of trying, where's that stranger? Who's that neighbor? And who's you, right? And you're not going to recognize yourself anymore in the mirror. So that was a great story, and it was a great, like I said, a great way to put it all in perspective, because there's so many people out there that are just not mentally healthy in bad relationships, bad situations, allowing themselves to feel that that's okay because they feel in their heart they don't deserve better. And that's far from the truth.
Well, and I will. So I told you that I'd read a poem at the end of this, right?
Yep.
And so that kind of leads me into this poem, right? Because
Perfect.
there's that situation, there's that whole idea of getting out of the bad situations, right? And then finding your place in good situations. Okay. But then, as we've talked about a lot, we go into, okay, well, we may be in a better situation now, but we are triggered from our past and we're stuck in the trauma responses, right? And so I wanted to kind of read this one. I wrote this one not last night, but the night before, about that idea of fighting for connection, right? Because that's the thing, is I'm in this new plane of existence, but I'm still triggered by the stuff that I've been in before. And so, I had a situation where I was struggling with, it was something that happened, and I got real frustrated at my husband, and there was no reason that I needed to, but I did. And it was just so quickly that I got triggered. And when I finally took a step back, I'm like, what is going on? Right. And so this is a poem that I wrote. And so as you guys are escaping the neighbor and finding your place in this new place of existence within that spirituality, just know that it is normal to have the past fighting with you. But what we get to do now is we get to fight for that connection. We get to fight for love. We get to fight for spirituality. And so that is what this poem is. And so I'll end on this poem. Thank you for letting me, read this story and kind of be vulnerable and whatnot. But so that's this poem. It's called Fighting for Connection. Sometimes it feels like every fiber of my being wants to disconnect anytime I don't feel seen. It feels like something is forcefully tugging, although inside I'm seeking for hugging. I'm fighting for connection from within my heart. A part of it feels dead. It needs a jump start. I think that's what God is actually doing. Spiritual CPR. He's actively pursuing. He doesn't want me to shut down, though my trauma scoffs and calls me a clown. The spirit inside bolsters me up, reminding me to be spiritually tough. Connection is worth the fight inside. The joy that comes with it is quite a ride. I know my relationships built on connection are really showing me an internal reflection. They show that love has finally replaced the pain I was drowning in, feeling disgraced by a past that scarred many parts of me. I truly am feeling a lot more free. I get exhausted by the unending fight. However, I see a completion in sight. My heart is being healed from the inside out, and that is something worth shouting about. I am so grateful for the journey today, and I know in the future God will clear the way. The fight for connection will be won, and the damage inside will be undone. I'll keep building muscles until that day and continue the fight, so come what may.
Outstanding. Another great one. And once again, hopefully she'll have that link for us really soon so we can attach it so you guys can go get yourself a copy of her amazing poems. And especially if you're on the road to, you have a journey of recovery, uh, perseverance, all those kind of things. All her poems are completely relatable to that kind of journey. So you'll get to see where her mindset was kind of throughout her journey, from the depths of the deep depths to the rise in the sky, right? So you get a good dose of it all, and that's why I think Marie has been. This is, I think, her year. 2025 is her year to be vocal, to start advocating and being out there for others that are struggling, and now she wants to speak it, and so she can maybe help one or two people out there, and if everyone out there had that goal in mind to save at least one or two people in their life, imagine how many people we can all save. So there's a lot of people out there that when they complete their journeys or they go through a journey, they just get in there, stay in their lane. They don't share that journey with others, because there's a lot of things throughout that journey that a lot of people tend to not be happy about or proud of. So a lot of times when we aren't proud of something or we're ashamed of something, we don't want to share it because we don't want to be judged by our peers, right? So this kind of setup for us, we're very much vulnerable sharing certain things, and I'm sure we're both not exactly proud of, but we're sharing them because they happened, and things we want other people to know that things do happen, no matter how perfect you try to act like you are. The things happen. You stub your toe, you might say fuck. I mean, there's just things that go on and happen out there, right? You know what I mean? And you're trying to be a perfect person, but we all stumble along the way, right? The thing about it is we got to stop holding each other to such crazy standards that we don't even hold for our own selves, and start being more concerned about where you are and what path you're on, and your journey, right? And that's when we learn to find the selfish part in this, right? Not the self-centered part, but
Yep.
being selfish, and once again, Maria, I'm so proud that you are speaking your mind. You are now being a voice for the voiceless. There's a lot of people out there that, like I said, they want to suppress what they're going through, but you're willing to share that because I know in your heart you want to help another woman out there that's going through that, or even a man, whoever may be in their struggle. You want to be help. You have a whole set of toolboxes that you've gotten along the way, and all these extra tools. Now you're sharing them, right?
Yes,
And that's amazing. And I'm glad that we found each other, and that we have been able to kind of evolve into a little show with us, and us kind of being able to work through a lot of these things, because I don't feel like there's enough being talked about it, because the algorithm is a weird world. It really likes to prey on negative stuff. So when you're trying to induce and trying to put positive out there, you get very suppressed by all the negative stuff. So in the algorithm world, you find yourself very low in the totem pole when you're trying to fight against suicide, PTSD, any kind of things that may be able to help someone get into a better path. It's weird. It gets lost in the algorithm, and we got to change that. We got to change that, because we got so many people out there that are not right with themselves. And like I said, if we're not right with ourselves, how can we be of good service to anybody else?
The algorithm likes to encourage a lot of the distractions. That's why. Here's food, here's alcohol, here's sex. This is what we want. We want you to distract. And so it's interesting when you start talking about fighting against that stuff, and like, hey, let's actually like help you heal. People don't like that, because that's taking away money from them.
Yeah, instead of us complaining or throwing, just constantly bitching about the situation, we're trying to throw out solutions. And that's what they don't like, right? They don't like the solution side. They want to keep pouring on, and everybody kind of stay in that little state of like, no, we want to try to get people out.
When people are healing, they think for themselves.
Right.
And that is another issue.
Correct. So, and that's 100% right. And that's a lot of kind of your story too, right? And that's a good point. When you unstable mentally, you tend to attach your mind into others and allow them to think for you, because this is too bogged up to think for itself now, because you got all this other stuff that's weighing it down, and you can't even think for yourself. And now we're living in a society kind of like that, right? They take the information they see right off run, and they just run with it, share it, just keep pushing out the disinformation and everything else, because once again, they don't have that mental sound of processing it. They're getting emotional with it and not taking the logistic of it all and be like, oh, wait, damn, that's a really far-fetched story. Maybe I should just stop it here, and delete, No, oh my gosh, I got to send this off to Cindy, Jerry, Mary, everybody, and it just, I feel like we're all playing into each other's mental health, and we're all feeding each other's mental health through social media. And if you are unhealthy, there's so much unhealthy being fed on those social medias, and it can feed into it. I would get upset by a stupid ass little post or some comment someone made, and I'm literally over here like feeling anxiety in my body because I'm like mad. And I'm like, what the frick, dude? What am I doing here? I'm allowing some troll who probably lives in his basement, in his mama's basement or whatever, it just doesn't care about anything else but making people pissed. And I'm over here like, woo, babe, could you believe what the fuck this dude, she's like, calm down. I'm like, yeah. What do you mean? There's nothing I can do, right? So I had to really take my self back, and that all started all going with me healing mentally, right? And starting to get tougher and things where I started really setting myself back, and I started getting bigger and better, not keep going in and feeding into the fire, right? I'm like, oh, I'm fucking walking away from this fire. I ain't throwing nothing on it. It's cool. It could go burn out. I used to want to go fight the fire. Instead, I'm more like that's someone else's fire to fight. And I'm not, and some people may look at that as a weakness, right? But there's a difference.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they think.
100%. There's a difference between fighting a fire and fighting a mission, right? And something that's really going on, and just trying to put out a flame. That's the difference. Is I'm walking away from making a flame bigger or making the fire worse or any of the sort. I just don't want to deal with that fire because it's not my fire. I didn't set it. You know what I mean?
Not my circus, not my monkeys.
There's 30 other fools over there kicking dirt in the damn thing and throwing gas on it, and I'm cool. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to be the 31 dude over there or female or whatever, and playing into that stuff. And I think that that's what we all find ourselves doing, and it's easy to do that when you get caught up scrolling. There's a post out there that's going to just, and you're just like, but for what? Like, reacting to that this way or that way, does that change the outcome? You got to always ask yourself, and until you get yourself mentally, healthy enough to get there, you don't have those little stop, like those ask yourself a question. Is this, and you kind of walk through the process of elimination through the checklist of, is this really worth fighting for? Is this something that can be changed by me saying anything? All these little things that you go through when you're not mentally sound, none of that matters, right? You don't have that checklist, so to speak. And you have developed more of a checklist, I think, for yourself, right? And that's how you kind of keep yourself in line, is as you get mentally sound, you all of a sudden you kind of start doing a checklist on reactions and things like that, and being able to remove yourself from a situation when you start feeling some kind of way, because now you can identify it as well. You didn't have that before when you're not mentally sound. You didn't have that ability to identify when you're feeling some kind of way. Now, when you start to get that way, even myself, I'm better at catching myself when I'm getting out of pocket. I'm getting better at saying I'm sorry for my actions if I'm out of pocket, as to where I didn't really ever apologize or something like that. Now it's like, hey, if I'm in the wrong, I know, hey, I need to make it right or whatever, not just try to act like, oh, I was pissed off and just let's move on from it. It's no, hey, I'm sorry, I made a mistake there, and I shouldn't have acted that kind of way. Or I shouldn't have said that.
You're learning how to make actual amends.
Right. So even though I maybe I threw that stone, right? I still threw that stone and I created some kind of damage. Now I'm going back. I'm trying to pick up the stone and I'm like, hey, hold up. I'm so sorry. My aim's off on that, whatever. And now you catch yourself with you're starting to catch yourself with the stone in your hand, getting ready to throw it. And then you're like,
well,
and then you drop it, right? And then you start to realize, and then one day you're not even going to pick up the stone no more, right? And then you're just you won't have a stone to pick up because your first reaction, it can be like grabbing for the stone and ready to go and throw it. You start to progress, right? And then when you throw it, the realization, oh shit, I shouldn't have threw that. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Did I hurt you? I'm so sorry. I apologize. Sometimes the damage from that throw could be so damaged and you can't fix it sometimes, right? But at least you're starting to be cognizant that you made the throw. Mm-hmm. Then after that, you need to be cognizant of when you want to throw it, to like stop yourself from throwing it and saying, all right, throw it down. And then you need to get to that level of not even picking one up. Not even picking it up. And then you're starting to get next level. Right? Or you go kill the person with kindness. Even worse than any before, where they would always think you're going to have a bad reaction to something.
But you go in for a hug instead.
Yeah, flip it. Flip the switch on them real quick. I'll tell you what, that'll make a person back the fuck up. and stop in their tracks real quick. Like, whoa, I thought this fool was going to unleash on me right now. And you're just like, come here, come here. There's just different ways you can go about it. But when you get to that level of you are in charge of your own mind and your own mindset, you start to feel like you have a little bit of some human powers to yourself, right? And your intuition starts to be right. There's things that you start to feel some kind of way, and then that is the right way, instead of your mind playing tricks on you and leaving you down these weird paths. When it gets to be clear, you start to see things a lot better, and it's harder to get put down on these weird paths that sometimes people want to lead you on. And it's funny too, when you get that power and you go talk to people that don't realize you have that power in you, and then you start to realize, this dude is always trying to make me do this or that. You never realized that before because you were stuck. So this was a really good little show to have, little different one, changing it up. But that's how it's going to be. Once we kind of get through our stories, we're going to be doing way more, just talking about general things like this. And it's kind of an awesome way to have something to have like a short story and then talk about it and kind of dissect it and correlate that to your life, as well as many others, like I said, that could be going through it. So this was a great one. Is there any last things you'd like to say, Marie, before we head out?
I'm grateful to be here. Thank you guys for walking on this journey with me. I've been really enjoying, like you said, just kind of, this is a new territory for me. And I've been on a couple other podcasts since being on yours, and it's been so wonderful, and it's been fun just to kind of share my story and to share my creativity. I am on the book thing, I am creating a new website. And once I get the website up, then I'll start selling. But I've been selling in person. So
nice.
that's
awesome.
been kind of fun, just locally. But again, if you are interested, here is the book again. If you are interested, more me than I used to be, A Journey to Freedom, Poetry and Photography by me. Send me your email. And once I get the website up and going, I have a friend who's helping me with it all. And so then I'll be able to do that. But it's been a lot of fun to just kind of open up to different possibilities. And he's trying to help me to develop a brand, type thing. And my hope is that one day that I can build some sort of a community to help others heal through, heal with recovery through faith and creativity and stuff like that. And so I'm just enjoying this. This has just been a lot of fun. So thank you so much. I'm glad that I was able to share this story that means so much to me. It was definitely very, like, as I'm reading it, I haven't read it a while. As I'm reading it, I'm feeling the emotions again because I'm remembering what triggered me into writing it. And so I'm just grateful that I was able to escape the neighbor and find that stranger, which is God, spirituality, and connection. And I'm grateful that I get to help others to find it as well. So, and thank you. Like, I'm enjoying learning about your story and connecting with you and doing this journey together. So just thank you for all that you do and for being an amazing platform to just be myself. So thank you. And you are awesome because you are allowing other people to heal as well. So thank you.
No, well, thank you. And it's been awesome just watching you evolve, right? And through your journey, and from the first time being on as a guest to the first time we decided to do coffee talk together. You just, you can see that you've gotten yourself into, you way more, assured of yourself. You have more confidence. You can just see that you're, and with your story, you're just very good with it, right? You've said it a lot. Now you're able to story tell it and tell it in a way that it can relate to others. You're taking your story and making it so relatable that they may not even be exactly what the other person's going through, but you make it so relatable. right? Just the circumstances and all that stuff. So it's great. And I hope that there's a lot of people out there that are benefiting from this. Please share this out. Help us get this out and help Marie's amazing poems and stuff like that get out there to the masses. We want to help others. We really do. We want you guys to feel comfortable about your healing process. If there's things out there that you want to come on and talk about, you feel like, you've been through a hell of a mental health journey and you want to talk about it, come on the show. Give me a email. Every day is a Saturday, 365 at yahoo.com. I'll also include Marie's email as well. I've been doing that on the descriptions of the show. So if you want to email either one of us, please give us an email. We would love to have you guys on and start sharing others' journeys and stuff as well. Because the more we all talk about this, you never know whose story can help someone else. So your story could be very instrumental to saving another person's life, but you're never going to be able to do that if you ain't talking about it. So if you've been through something and you want to talk about it, and maybe you're shy, right, and you don't want to come on, shoot me an email. Just give me your story, and we'll share your story on here as well, because it's very important to share as many stories of how people are getting themselves out of the ditches, so to speak, and getting themselves into a position where they feel good about themselves again, a position where they can be a good husband, a good wife, a good mother, a good father, a good uncle, good dad, whatever it may be. So we're here for you guys. We hope you guys have an amazing day, amazing week. And you know how we say, don't let the day kick your ass. Make sure you're out there kicking it. We'll see you guys. Until next time.
Bye.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.